I want to tell you about someone that I know. I have a friend. His name is Peter. I met him in about 1974. I was traveling, running around with my dad. I went everywhere with my dad. And we went to a hospital to visit a member of the church's family, and they had a child in the hospital. So we went to the hospital in Oklahoma City to visit this family. And when we got there, we went to the room, and no one was in the room, and we asked the nurse. She goes, "Oh, well, they're all down in this little room down here at the end of the hall." And we went down there, and there was this guy playing a guitar and singing songs for him and all. And his name is Peter. That's a picture of him right there. And he was obviously younger when this happened. But we went in, and we sat, and we listened to him, and he was good. I mean, this guy could flat play the guitar, and I didn't know who he was at the time, but then he sang a song that I knew, and for those of you who are close to my age, you'll remember Puff the Magic Dragon, okay? And it was a very famous song on the radio, and he played that, and I'm going, wow, that's Puff the Magic Dragon. I know that song, And when it was over, I went up and I talked to him and I shook his hand. And his name is Peter Yarrow, and he was a part of a singing group called Peter, Paul, and Mary, and they were very popular. And in fact, nowadays, if you ever watch TV late at night and they've got the Time Life records of the past, they will have a lot of times you'll see Peter, Paul, and Mary on there. Now, they don't sing together as a group anymore because Mary's died. But Peter Yarrow, and he's the guy down here in the corner, he's the guy who wrote Puff the Magic Dragon. And I know him. I mean, I've known him for years. He's a friend of mine. But if you were to call Peter up and you'd say, "Hey, Peter," or maybe you run into him, you go to a hospital and he's playing, and you go, "Hey, there was a guy down at church the other day who was telling about when he met you, one of your friends." And he'd say, "Really? Who is that?" And you say, "Well, it was Michael McCorkle." And I see him and I say, "I know this guy." And he would say, "Michael who?" Let me back up there. That's a picture of us together through the magic of Photoshop. He doesn't know me. But every time I see him on TV, if we have company, I go, "I know that guy." I know that guy. Do I know him? Well, I met him. I shook his hand. I talked to him. But I don't know him. He doesn't know me from the man in the moon. But there is another guy that I know. There's a guy in that picture I know. The guy right there in the back. I know that guy. That's Jerry McCorkle. That guy's my dad. I've traveled a lot of miles with that man. Went everywhere with him when I was young. He spanked my bottom. I know what he likes. I know what food he likes. I know what he doesn't like. I know what makes him angry. I know what makes him sing. In fact, that guy's my dad, if you didn't know that. If you were to see my dad and you were to say to him, "Hey, Michael was at church the other day and he was talking about you," you know what he's not going to say? He's not going to say, "Michael who?" Because we have a relationship. I walk like my dad. Now that I've shaved off my mustache, I look more like my dad all the time. I said something, was it yesterday, Rusty? I can't remember what it was I said, and what's that? I said, "Oh, good grief," about something, and I said, "That sounded just like my dad, didn't it?" And Rusty said, "Yes, it did." Sounded just like, because he's in my DNA. I mean, he's part of who I am. I couldn't be me without him. Because he's a part of me in my life. Not like Peter Yarrow. He's just a guy I met one time. There's lots of people who are that way about Jesus. I know that guy. Because I went to church one time and I heard a sermon about it, and I got up and I went up and I said a prayer and asked that guy into my heart. Hadn't seen him since then. Hadn't talked to him. He hadn't talked to me. In fact, the bulk of my relationship with that guy since then has been this, in long, boring sermons. Jesus said this, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name?" He said, people are going to come to me and say, "Lord, look what I did for you. I prophesied for you. I did great things. I cast out demons. I did all kinds of things for you." And then I will declare to them, "I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." Do you know Jesus? Or do you know about Jesus? Those aren't the same thing. It's not the same thing to know who He was unless you know Him. It's not the same thing to know what He told you to do unless you love Him enough that you want to do what He told you to do. So it makes a difference in your life every day. You can't have Christianity without Christ. You need to think about Jesus every single day. He gave His life for you. He suffered. He died. He was tortured. And He lived a perfect life. He left heaven for you because He loves you. And you won't fool Him just like I couldn't fool Peter Yarrow about our friendship. You can't fool Jesus about yours either. It's got to be real. It's got to be genuine. You got to know Him. You got to love Him. You got to obey Him because you love Him. Your morality, your relationship with your friends, with your enemies, your attitude, all those things have to be shaped because Jesus is at the center of your life. He's not just another one of those things that you add to your life with your taekwondo lessons and your piano lessons and your Subway sandwich and whatever it is you have in your life. He's not just another one of those things. He's the center of the life of a Christian. Is He your center? If He's not, you need to change that tonight. You need to move Him from the outside to the middle. You need to build your life on Him and not just have Him be another piece of the life that He is. Don't build your life on your kids. They grow up and leave. I'm learning that. My kids are going away. Don't build your life on your spouse. They die and leave you alone. Don't build your life on anyone or anything but Jesus Christ. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He alone is worth everything you have and are. Put Him in the center.